Hello and welcome to another edition of All About Berea. I'm Chad Hembry.
And I'm Beth Myers.
Joining us, we have a very special guest. I'll let you introduce her, Beth, since you invited her.
Okay, this is Gwen Childs we have from the Berea Arts Council, and she's going to be talking to us about the quilt extravaganza coming up this weekend.
Of course, she'll be with us for the entire show, and we're very excited to have you. Thanks for being here, Gwen.
That's right.
Thanks,
We get the guests in and we lock the door. They can't leave until we're done.
Okay,
That's
I was
the
going to
rules.
say I'm glad to be here.
Now she might have second thoughts. She's going to think she's in Ohio with that guy.
We're extremely benign hostage takers.
Well, first of all, we're going to go to our first section of the show, which is 4 things you should know.
Thanks, Chad. Okay, as far as 4 things we should know, we've already mentioned one, which is there's going to be the quilt extravaganza in Berea. A lot of the activities are going to take place at Berea Community School. On Friday, August 2nd, activities are going to go from 10 till 6, and Saturday, August 3rd, from 10 till 5. It's going to include quilt exhibits, lectures, and demonstrations. There's also going to be a featured speaker, and I will probably wait to give the details on that until I have Gwen talk about that. Next, there is back to school, kids. It's coming around the corner. Berea Community School is having their ice cream social, their annual event to start off the school year. It's going to be on August let's see, is it 6th? Yes, and it's going to be at the school. Now, August 8th is going to actually be the first day for Berea community students. You have to arrive by 7:40 a.m. for the elementary schools. The Madison County schools are not going to start until August 14th. There is going to be a Holler in the Holler from August 9th to 11th at Homegrown Hideaways on Floyd Branch Road. This is an annual music festival from bluegrass to folk to dance. It takes place on a 100-acre farm in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. There's also going to be fire dancing, hula hooping, henna, yoga, bonfire, local food, grassroots tables, workshops, and demonstrations. You can go to their website, homegrownhideaways.org, to find out more about that event. And last, on August 12th, Jennifer Farr Davis is going to come to the Madison County Public Library to talk about her recent record breaking on the Appalachian Trail. She did it in less time than any man or female has before and wrote a book called Called Again, A Story of Love and Triumph. So she will be there at 6:30, and she is going to talk about her experiences and her new book. And that is it for 4 things you should know.
Thank you very much, Beth. It's funny, growing up around here, going to the Holler for a party doesn't sound like that big of a stretch for me, but I still don't think I'm going to get used to the fact that come down to the Holler and go visit us on our website. You know,
I know.
Is that a crash of cultures right there or what?
Well, and of course, I think there's a lot of cliches around such an event like Holler in the Holler, because of course, what somebody said is, oh, that's where all the hippies are going to
go. But be sure to check them out on their website. You know?
But I have some friends who go down there. A lot of people camp, for the 3 days.
I'm sure it's a big time.
Yeah, so I think it's a big time for people who don't mind roughing it a little bit and having one of those outdoorsy camping musical experiences. So
I keep threatening Letha I'm going to go to one of these events and have them do the henna all over me and show up at council meeting, That'll attract some attention, right?
And she probably just looks at you and says, whatever, Chad,
she's like,
you go do it.
You know what she said to me? Doesn't surprise me. And if I'm going to lose the shock value, it's not worth doing it. So I guess I won't do it. And it does take place in the 100-acre wood, you said.
That's right. Just be careful not to take, any hollows in the tree that might look like somebody's already living there.
Yeah,
like little piglets and things.
House or
yeah,
something.
we don't want to kick them out.
All right, next on your list here.
Well, I was going to ask you how Mason's doing, because my kids, I'm really staying away from talking about how quickly school is coming.
Well, I can talk about that, but what I really wanted to know is, do I have to be going back to school to go to the ice cream social? That sounds right down my alley.
I guess you could lie and say you're considering putting Mason
That was one of my
Berea
favorite
community.
things of going to Berea College was doing the ice cream social before school each year, out on the President's lawn.
Berea College has an ice cream social.
Well, they did back when John Stevenson was there. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, that's
adorable.
right.
That's probably how Berea Community got started on it, doing that. Because I know it's been several years, ever since David's been going. They've had that. And I am very nervous about saying August 6th, I should say. I'm pretty sure it's...
You're pretty sure?
I'm pretty sure, but I'm not positive. So people will want to check that if they're counting on that date.
Well, thank you for doing the research on all that. And this Called Again, have you read that book yet? Or have you...
No, I haven't. And I'll tell you something interesting about her. Because the library talked to me about doing the article is, like I said, Jennifer, I wish I could remember how long it took her. I'm thinking 26 days to do the Appalachian Trail was the record that she had set. And she's a big hiker. She's hiked all over the world. But she said this was the most challenging. And I think she said she would get maybe 6 hours of sleep a night. But what's interesting is what she's trying to do is plug the book, kind of a book tour, in one in every state. And she specifically wanted to come to Berea. So she actually contacted the library about doing this. So when I talked to her, I was like, so why Berea? And it's just a town that she's just been very interested in, and felt like people here would really enjoy her story. I think she's maybe passed through once. So yeah, she's an interesting person, has her own hiking company. She does tour guides and things like that. And
well, I admire her because I'd be just the opposite. I'd be hiking 6 hours and sleeping the rest of the day. So
well, she said she was doing okay until she got to Vermont. And that's when it got tough. That's when, she said she really wanted to quit, and her husband pulled her through to keep it up.
Well, I want to go meet her now. That sounds very interesting.
I think she beat the last record by 12 hours. And evidently it's more kind of a informal thing. It's not like you have Guinness out there to officially record it. It's like a hiking record that's more informally kept. So
yeah, but
now she's down in the hiking lore of the trail.
Over 26 days, the difference was only 12 hours. I mean, it's pretty close over a 26-day period.
Right. And and of course, so they may be getting up to the ceiling of how much a human being can reasonably do it. So, but I know when I had a friend and we were part of it, and that we were sending boxes of food, to different addresses, points along the trail, and she'd get off and stock it up. And I remember it was funny, about halfway through, she called us and said, please quit sending the granola. I can't take it anymore. So we pulled all the granola out of her boxes, because I guess that's what she had been living on. But I think she probably did it in about 2.5 months, 3 months. So when she said 26 days, I was kind of like, wow, that's a great deal quicker than your
I can think of lots of questions I'd like to ask her. Yeah,
so I would like to go too. I think it's going to be really interesting.
Gwen, are you going to be taking up the Appalachian Trail anytime soon?
I don't think so.
Don't think so.
That sounds crazy to me. Do the whole thing in 26 days.
I couldn't imagine walking on the level streets that far, much less over the mountains.
Well, and I'd like to think, my romantic version of myself is that I would really enjoy it. But the thing with me is, when I start hiking for real long times, I get really bored. It's beautiful and it's wonderful, and I've got my dog and I enjoy it for a certain amount of time. But then at some point it's I'm
going to walk off this cliff to get something interesting to happen.
Really bored of walking.
Yeah. That was like me driving to Colorado that last time. It's I want to just hit a tree, but there's not even a tree to hit.
Try to drive through Alabama. Constant deja vu.
It is just bad. Okay, Gwen, thanks for being here. She had talked about the quilt extravaganza, so we'll just go ahead and pull that into the interview. But we'll go ahead and get started with the interview now, if you want to. Okay,
yeah. So, Gwen, how many is this now, as far as quilt extravaganzas?
It's number 9.
Number 9. And I wish I could remember who I was talking to who said that she was part of the reason. Was it Cheryl Stone was part of how the the quilting extravaganza came about, or she was part of that group, I think, that got it started. I was wondering if you could tell us the history of how you guys got involved with it.
Well, the mayor had a meeting with a bunch of city shop owners, gallery owners, artists, talking about ways to stimulate traffic in the community. And we set up a bunch of committees that came out of that meeting. And one of the things we were looking at was we set up an event committee, and I was on that committee along with Jimmy Lou Jackson, and I can't remember who some of those people were. Pat Jennings was on that committee, I think, and talking about looking at where there were holes in our schedule in Berea, where there were times of the year that things weren't happening. And August, hottest month of the year, was a month where there weren't any special events planned. So we started brainstorming about what that could be, what kind of special event we could create. And quilting is such a universal art form. Everybody's family has quilts. Lots of people grew up with their grandmother's quilting. They've got quilts in their family collection. So we thought, well, let's do a quilting event and let's call it Quilt Extravaganza, and let's invite the community to display their quilts they have. And every year it's gotten just a little bit bigger. Our first event, we showed quilts at the Folk Center. We had an exhibit at the Arts Council, and we had a vendor's market that was outside in August. We didn't do that for very long.
It's kind of like me getting married in July. I never did that again either.
I did that too.
So, and I think it kind of traveled to Berea community. That would have been after probably the renovation when they did the large gym, because I know that's been for several years now that because that's where the vendors fair takes place now, right?
Yes, this is our it's either our third or fourth year at the school, which has just been great. And I can't say enough about the school and the board opening up that school to the community and making it available for community events. It's really wonderful. We've been able to have the majority of the event under one roof, which has been kind of fun. We've also got other exhibits going on out in the community at First Christian Church. We'll have a quilt exhibit, and Union Church, and then we have an art quilt exhibit at the Arts Council as well.
Yeah, and I remember you're having a reception for that. It's from Kentucky Quilters. Is a special exhibit taking place at the Berea Arts Council?
Yes, it's an art quilt exhibit called Quilts with a Kick, and it's the quilt artists of Kentucky. So that's quilters from around the state who don't make traditional quilts. These are all art quilts, and they always have a quilt challenge. If you're a quilter, you know what quilt challenges are. So their challenge this year was to find an apron and use that apron as inspiration for creating a quilt. So the exhibit's really fun this year because we've got all the aprons displayed.
That inspired the quilts.
They're displayed separately from the quilts, and there's a matching game going on. So you can come in and get your little matching ballot and figure out which quilts were inspired by which aprons. It's pretty cool. People are spending a lot of time in there doing that.
And actually, Jeanette Rowlett from the Kentucky Guild of Artists and Craftsmen called me a couple days ago, and actually they have a photographic exhibit in their space of people actually quilting, and then the stories of how they came to be and that kind of thing. So that's another. It's fun to see how the town, like gradually more organizations kind of will come in line to hold things on the same weekend along the same theme, and I've seen that part of the growth.
It's great. It's great to have
different people start to kind of jump on the bandwagon. Okay, this is the quilt weekend.
I just want to know if there's a Kiss the Cook quilt. That's my favorite apron.
Have you noticed
not.
There's not one. See,
but I will say that most of these quilts are made by women, and maybe they. I don't know. I'm not going any further with that.
We'll just stop that now. Okay, that's enough on that topic. So let me ask another question of Gwen. So obviously the vendors the vendor sale is going to take place in Berea community, and I think the community quilt show will be there as well, right? In the gymnasium?
Right. The community quilt show is in the gymnasium in the elementary side of the school.
And then you're going to have a special luncheon. Is that going to be on the Saturday that's going to take place?
It's Saturday, and it's actually not going to be a luncheon. We changed the plans, so she will be at Berea Community School.
If anyone asked you that, went in the calendar for the newspaper. That's a luncheon.
Oops. We'll clarify that.
When they call, just tell them.
Yes, we'll clarify that. Susie Perrin wrote a book called Barn Quilts and the American Quilt Trail Movement, and she has been traveling all over the country, photographing these barn quilts and talking to the communities and finding out how they did their project. And she actually met the woman who is the founder of this movement, whose name is Donna Sue Groves. She lives in Ohio. The very first barn quilt was painted on a barn in the county that she lives in Ohio. She had the idea to do this to honor her mother. And then folks in the county thought this could be a great economic development tool for our county to get people into the county, driving around, looking for these quilt barns. And so it's been crazy. It's this crazy American grassroots movement that is now in over 20 states and 2 Canadian provinces.
I did not know that was the history of the barn quilts. That is fascinating.
It's really quite amazing.
Because, even on 25, I always notice that one on Highway 25 between Richmond and Berea. As I go there, I always notice that barn quilt there. And I love the photo that Christy Green had gotten, of the one that's actually, let's see, it's that on the back of the Berea Arts Council, right?
It is.
You have that one quilt.
Yes, right there on College Square.
Right, to see those.
I was trying to think where another one is in town. I think Mary and Neil hung one on their business there in Old Town.
Yeah, and there's one on top of Honeysuckle Vine.
Okay.
That's right.
Right across the street from it there. Okay. All right.
And on the back of the old hotel building there on the corner, you can see that as you're coming down Broadway.
And the one I'm talking about is if you go to tourism and turn around and look back, their business is that blue building on the corner there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and after 9 years, you've probably seen a slow increase too in attendance. It seems like more and more people I meet come from further away to come to the quilt extravaganza. Has that been your experience too, Gwen?
Yeah, it's. I'd say we have about between 12 and 1,500 people. It's not the hugest event that Berea has, but it's
enough to be a party.
It's enough to be a party, and it's consistent. And we've had people from, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we ask people to sign in when they come to the community quilt show and tell us where they're from. So we've had people from 40 different Kentucky communities, bunches of states. Would claim the ones that come from out of country, although they're probably not in Berea just for the quilt extravaganza.
But you can still say they attend.
They attend. We're really amazed. They come from all over.
Well, I'd say, you've really hit a niche with that. And the thing that struck me with quilt extravaganza and it getting going and doing some stories for the newspaper, etc., is that there's the quilts as an art form, but then behind all of that are these incredible stories. They're just
stories.
so interwoven with every quilt, and I think that's what I've found fascinating. Is even, I might say, more than any other art form. Do you quilt, Gwen?
I don't quilt. I'm a weaver.
Right. I didn't know and my mother always quilted, and so actually I still have on my bed every one of the three of us, me and my sisters, would get a quilt for our high school graduation, one she made out of all the pieces of fabric from all the clothes she had ever made for us.
That's great.
She made each of us a quilt. So that's like the story of that quilt. And that's one thing I really love about it, is it's rare to come across a quilt that doesn't have a story behind it.
That's true. And there's a great group of quilts that have wonderful stories that's going to be in the community show created by Virginia Pyland, who's a longtime resident of Berea. There's a quilt hanging in the Berea Madison County Library, the public library. That quilt was made by Virginia. There's one, the big quilt in the hospital. There are two quilts in the hospital that Virginia made. We're going to have about 20 of her quilts on display in the community quilt show.
That's great.
So lots of great stories behind those quilts.
And I know this year in particular, you were asking for people to submit quilts that haven't been shown, I think, within the last couple of quilt extravaganzas.
Yeah, you like to keep things fresh.
Right,
you know?
Things people haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember have you, because you mentioned hers, have you seen any others that people have turned in? Any great surprises?
Well, there's
that you want to tease us with?
There's a local group of quilters called the Depot Quilters that get together and quilt with each other every Tuesday afternoon. And they did a challenge quilts this year. And their theme was road trips. So I've seen just a couple of those, but I think those will be pretty interesting. It'll be fun to see where the inspirations come from.
I remember when I first discovered what quilting challenges with, I only learned that a couple years ago, what a quilting challenge was. And I think that was the river runs through. Mm-hmm. And I always hated that I never got to see that, but I think they had to put a river through each quilt, and they actually connected, right, so that they could hang all of them up and have one river running through every quilt. But we were out of town, and so I never actually got to see them all hung together. With the river running. It's like they planned that. I guess they would say, okay, your river should start here and end here, whatever else you do with it, so that it connect to two others. So I always hated that I never got to come in and see that.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be a fantastic event, and we look forward to it. And I'm sure if you even mildly like quilts, you're going to love it. There's a lot to see. Come down and check it out. Do want to ask you more questions, though, about the Arts Council, just in general. First of all, how long have you been around?
How long has the Arts Council been around?
Yeah.
We're 26 years.
26 years. And how are you funded?
Every which way you could think of.
Well, no, that's fine.
We get funding from the Kentucky Arts Council, which gets funding through the Kentucky State Legislature, which comes from the National Endowment for the Arts. So talking to one's legislators about funding for the arts is, if you believe in the arts and you appreciate what the arts can bring to the quality of the life of a community, tell them it's a good thing to fund the arts. We rely on members. We have a membership of about 250 people. That's part of our funding. We rely on sponsorships for events like Quilt Extravaganza. We have great in-kind partnerships with businesses like the Berea Citizen and other organizations. We've been really grateful for a corporate sponsorship for the last 2 years from St. Joe Berea Hospital. So it's a variety of support. There's funding that comes from Berea Tourism and great support in not necessarily financial ways, but through the city, helping with, providing tables and chairs for events and in kind. There you go.
Okay. All right. Now, if someone wanted to help fund you, how would they go about that?
Well, they can write a check to the Berea Arts Council. They can go online to our website, www.bereaartscouncil.org, and we have a PayPal button. They can make a contribution that way. They can call us. We'd be happy to talk to folks about any way that they would like to help us out.
All right. And is it tax deductible?
It is tax deductible.
So see, there you go.
And they could become a member.
Right.
As well.
Yes. Members are some of our best supporters.
So now how do you become a member, and what does membership involve?
Well, you can go online and become a member. To our website, there's a form that you fill out that involves telling us about yourselves, paying a membership fee. Individual memberships are $25. A household is $35. And membership, you get the benefit of knowing that you're supporting a great organization like the Arts Council. And we like to think that we provide great arts programming for the community every year in early October, late September. We do an event called Walk with the Arts out at Indian Fort Theater, which provides a great hands-on arts experience to all the fourth graders in Madison County. So almost 1,000 students. We provide exposure to about 20 artists who are performing, creating artwork, giving the kids opportunities to get their hands on a piece of clay to see what that experience is like.
That's great.
Well, and I want to put a big plug in, and it's not something I thought about nearly as much, except to think about it in general terms of I think it's a good thing to have art in the community. But I know with my oldest son, David, who's been so interested in art, that was not a background my husband or I had. And so the Berea Arts Council has just been wonderful, being able to send him to the camps. He loved the Walk with the Arts. It's just opened a lot of doors for him. And I know, like, the camp he goes to, what we paid, it's like, oh my goodness, what we received for that was incredible. So I'm very happy it's in the community.
Oh, that's great to hear.
And as an arts council, you support all the arts.
Yes.
Yes, because I think that sometimes people get maybe attached to the visual art, and actually you're into. You actually just had the Shakespeare, right?
Right.
That was part of the
Shakespeare's Ladies Meet.
Yeah, we hosted the Rose Barn Theater for that. Yeah. They did 5 performances at the Arts Council. So that was really great. And a good turnout for it, too.
And I know with David in the camp, it was music, it was theatrical, it was
a little bit of
pottery,
dance.
fabric, dance. Yeah. So it was all in there. I think the dance, he and a couple boys were not so thrilled
great for the
with
boys.
They did eventually get coaxed out onto the floor. It was a good way to stretch him.
And there's always a great music component to the Walk with the Arts piece.
Right. And you had the puppets out there too.
Had the puppet folks, and Mitch Barrett comes every year.
And storytelling too.
He's becoming a very repeat subject to come up on the show. The last 3-4 shows now.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't think we've had a show went by that Mitch hasn't snuck in there. Are you listening, Mitch? You know that we were talking about you.
Well, maybe you need to have Mitch on the show.
He was on the show. See, he was on the show.
But amazingly enough, it was because of his daughter, who was in the Red River Moon, that independent film.
Yeah,
we'll have to have him back now so he can talk about himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Some more. But actually, he did teach us about, and here it is. We just talked about this last week, but Gwen, he taught us about house concerts. Are you familiar with house concerts?
I am familiar with them.
Well, see, I'm the only person on the planet, obviously, that was.
I was not that familiar with it either.
Well, I know about them. I have to say, I've never been to one. Sorry, Mitch. Invite me, I'll come to one.
All right, there's the challenge. Maybe I need to host one.
There you go.
There's no better way to break in than just jump in with both feet. Is that right?
And there's no better way to get the renovation finished.
No, that's true. That's true. We were laughing about that. Gwen came up and we're redoing our bathroom. And I said, the toilet in the front yard isn't permanent. We're not putting flowers in it.
Oh, I thought you were going to try to talk her into it being an art fixture in the front yard. You decided it just wasn't going to sell.
That's not going to fly. No, not with my wife. No.
We are thinking about what our next community art project could be. Our next public art project.
Hey, there you go. The bathroom fixture art.
I was going to say, I don't think that one's going to fly. Yeah, sorry.
I have to share this one story. When David was at the camp, Berea Arts Council camp, they had a performance the last day, and we were all invited for refreshments, and they did a variety of things, and then also had their art around the room. It was at Union Church. And they did the Mad Libs, where they'll say, give me a noun, give me an adjective, and then they'll read it all out. They did that, and on one of the objects, household objects or something like that, I actually said toilet, which all the kids thought was pretty funny. And Tina Williams looked at me and said, your son said the same thing when we did it with the kids.
I wonder where he got that from.
I said, I think that's just, coincidence.
Well, Gwen, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for educating us on the Arts Council and, of course, sharing with the Quilt Extravaganza. I think now it's time we're going to go ahead and go into the calendar and start wrapping up.
Okay. Let's do the calendar of events. On August 9th, which is Friday, will be the second Free Arts Alive concert. This is the program that the Parks and Recreation does in collaboration with tourism. They're going to have Robbie Bartlett, the blues, and it's going to be at the Chestnut Street Square at 7 p.m. I think I mentioned this last week. All their concerts this year are going to take place at the Chestnut Street Square. And then on August 10th, a new program they're going to do through the Parks and Rec is going to be called a bike rodeo from 1 to 3 p.m. It's going to be on Saturday, the 10th. It's going to be in the Berea Municipal Utilities parking lot. Kids are invited to bring bikes for a free inspection. There's going to be an obstacle course set up for them, and a bike ride led by Officer Wicker, who is with the Berea Department Bike Control. Sorry, Patrol.
Yeah.
Not trying to control them, trying to patrol them. On August 12th, I mentioned before, Jennifer Farr Davis will be doing her program called Again, A Story of Love and Triumph at 6:30 p.m. at the library for the Hiking the Appalachian Trail. From August 15th to 18th, people can go ahead and write on their calendar. It's going to be the 4th annual Berea Celtic Festival. It's going to take place around this city, some at the Berea Center for the Arts. There's going to be sessions, Irish dance, concerts. If people are interested in the schedule, they can check it out at berea-celtic.com. And then on the August 16th, for the Friday after, there's going to be, again, the 3rd Arts Alive concert at 7, Banja Big Band 17-piece ensemble, if people want to check that one out. And last on that, there's also going to be that Friday afternoon of the 16th, a showing of James Joyce's Dublin, the Ulysses Tour. That's going to be shown in conjunction with the Berea Celtic Festival. It's going to go 115 minutes. It is not rated. And that is it for the calendar of events. If you want to get more of the details of everything that's happening, you can check it out at the Berea Citizen or at BreaOnline.com.
Thank you very much, Beth. I do want to say we did have one bit of correspondence from the last one, and that was that where is the Chestnut Street Square Park?
Somebody wrote in and said, where the heck is it?
What I wrote back is like, it's where the bronze figures are of John G. Fee. And they were like, oh, didn't know that's what that was called.
Actually, that's true. Chestnut Street, there's no sign. And it's like, okay, there's a square somewhere on Chestnut Street. But yeah, it's the one beside the bank, People's Bank, and it's the one with the statue, and then it's
sandwiched in between Slate Lick Road, or what is the road at the top of the hill? It's not Slate Lick at that point.
It's Boone Street.
Boone Street. Thank you. It's sandwiched between
it's Boone Street to the right and Fee to the left.
Yes.
So, but yeah, it's on.
So Boone. It's right in the middle of town.
And I can't remember, but for those of you new to Berea, that was once a gas station.
A bonded
can
station,
believe it.
actually.
Bonded
Yeah.
station.
Yeah, I remember that.
What was it called?
Bonded.
Bonded.
They don't even
I
have
remember
bonded
that.
stations anymore. Aren't they? They're all gone, aren't they? Yeah.
Because that's when I was actually working for the County Chronicle, and I was across from it. And that's where I'd go and get my sodas.
Well, see, I made a mistake on Tech Talk one week talking about gasoline stations and ones that used to exist a lot and that you don't see anymore. And I said Sunoco. And then we went south for vacation, and there were hundreds of Sunoco stations. And I even found out they're the official gasoline of NASCAR. So I put them in the grave way before way before it was due.
Well, and speaking of Chestnut, we personally are looking forward to when perhaps the Berea Arts Council coming to Chestnut Street at some time in the future, because that way I can hit the library, Roby and Roby's, and the Berea Arts Council, all like within a half a mile of my front door. So I hope that someday I may see you there.
I hope that too.
She has her own agenda in life for that.
See, I can say my agendas. I'm not on the city council.
Oh, there you go. Well, thank you for listening. This has been another edition of All About Berea. I want to thank Gwen Childs for being here with us. Also want to thank our sponsors, Good Impressions Screen Printing. They provide our wonderful shirts and signs, and we'll actually be at a live location in the next show. And you need to look in the Berea Citizen on Berea Online to find out where that's going to be. We're actually evaluating a few places, but the next show will actually be in a live location. I want to thank our sponsors, the Berea Citizen. It's been serving the City of Berea since 1899.
We're on the 114th year. Of course, if you remember, the college first started the newspaper.
1899 still. That's very impressive. And of course, BreaOnline.com, which has been around since 1995. And if you consider how old the web is, that's pretty old too.
One of those internet youngsters coming around.
Thanks again for listening. Join us next week for more Berea news.
All About Berea is brought to you by Good Impressions Design. For screen printing, trophies, plaques, signs and more, check out Good Impressions' full line of services, and make a good impression with your business today. On the web at goodimpressionsdesign.com. By the Berea Citizen. Serving the community since 1899, this Berea icon continues to produce award-winning news stories and features. Pick up your copy today or sign up for a weekly subscription by calling 859-986-0959. By BreaOnline.com. Constantly updated, this site is the most up-to-date place to find what's going on in Berea. Loaded with videos, shows, stories, articles and a full calendar of events, this site has been the place to go on the web for Bereans since 1995. The name says it all, it's Berea Online. The opinions expressed on All About Berea are not those of BreaOnline.com, the Berea Citizen, nor any other sponsor. All About Berea is a production of Tech Talk Studios and recorded weekly in Berea, Kentucky, in partnership with the Creative Tech Media Group and BreaOnline.com. All About Berea is co-produced by Rhonda McIntyre, co-produced and directed by Chad Hembry, and finally, our senior news editor is Beth Myers. If you would like to participate in All About Berea, or simply have a suggestion, we would love to hear from you. Just go to BreaOnline.com and click on All About Berea at the top of the page. For sponsorship opportunities, contact the Creative Tech Media Group at creativetechmedia.com or phone 859-626-6054. From all of us here at Tech Talk Studios, and on behalf of the cast and crew of All About Berea, thanks for listening.